Hello and welcome to the Daily Edit. I'm your host Todd Middlebrooks. Today we're going to be back in Snapseed. We're going to be talking about high dynamic range, when to use it, how to use it, and how not to overuse it. Coming up on this episode. In a previous episode, we talked about how cameras and camera sensors have a difficult time capturing dynamic range, the same type of dynamic range that our eyes can see. And that's why we have to expose for either the highlights or the shadows, but that's typically going to create a compromise in the image where parts of the image are too bright, parts of the image are too dim, and you just have to live with that. However, in Snapseed and a lot of photo editing programs, there are functions to kind of blend the highlights and shadows and simulate high dynamic range. Now, high dynamic range or HDR, is actually a method of capturing images where you blend multiple exposures to create what the eye is seeing in the highlights and the shadows. Actually, some higher end cameras, very expensive cameras, have more stops, more latitude with the dynamic range, and capable of capturing more what our eye sees. However, our camera phones and our consumer grade cameras do not have that luxury. So what we do is we try to simulate high dynamic range in the edit by bringing down the highlights, bringing up the shadows, and kind of blending the two into a more balanced photo. So let's get right into that in Snapseed. Let's see here just a moment. All right, let's line things up here. All right, there I am. See if we can flip-flop these two. There we go. Okay. Now we've got our Snapseed up here. And this is an image that was taken while on vacation last year. And again, you can see the historical edits here on this image. And I'm going to walk through how we achieved this photo by reverting back to the original image. And I'll just revert that. We'll say yes, and we're going to discard the changes. So as you can see in this image, it was pretty well balanced. This was shot from a hotel balcony. It was a cloudy day, so the foliage, the flowers, the trees, the grass were all very saturated. And there was the brights weren't super bright and the darks weren't super dark. So to me, this is actually a good starting point for an HDR image, especially one where we're going for a more balanced look, not that kind of super artificial HDR look. So the very first thing I'll do is go into Tools, and then on the far right, third row down, you'll see the HDR Scape button. And we'll tap that, and immediately we get, I would say, less than desirable results for what I'm trying to achieve. Again, I'm looking for a kind of a realistic look to this photo. And so what I'll typically do is dial back the strength just a little. And again, this is going to depend on the image. It came out a little bright as well. So that looks pretty good. You can also look at the saturation. Sometimes HDR images become oversaturated, and sometimes they become, some people like the desaturated HDR look, which is also an option as well. So we'll go ahead and commit those changes. And we can see there the before and the after. Now, a lot of times, if I'm trying to manipulate an HDR look, or I want to achieve a more filmic type of look, I'll use the grainy film feature down here in combination with the Glamour Glow. This is just a kind of a formula that I've learned to put together over time that looks good on my photos, and so those were applied to this image, and so we'll go ahead and add those. We'll start with the grainy film. Now, what I recommend doing with any tool in Snapseed is to play around with it. If there are options across the bottom, I would go through every one of them to determine which one looks best for that particular image, or to determine over time which ones you like the best on your image. Again, each image is going to be different. So we'll kind of just click through these. Each of these is designed to simulate a particular type of film stock or a particular look. That one's not bad. I don't remember exactly which one I had on here, so this edit may come out slightly different than what we had before. Kind of like that. Again, this is to taste, so I do kind of like that, but let's dial it back just a little on the strength. All right, that looks good. Then we'll go into our Glamour Glow. And what that does is just kind of puts a little glow around some of the edges. You'll see there in the clouds and then around the palm trees there. It just kind of takes away some of that crispness. Digital cameras, even those that are found in our smartphones, can sometimes be too crisp. And so if we're going for that filmic kind of look, then it helps to put a little glow in there to round out those edges. Yeah, you can just kind of see how it takes the edge off some of those transition points around the trees and the water and things like that. So that's looking pretty good. Also helped to get rid of some of the yellow in the sky, which I was not really a fan of. So that's good as well. And then lastly, this is something that I do on most of the images that I edit in Snapseed, is to put a little bit of a vignette on there. And again, that's to taste. Just kind of helps concentrate the eye towards the center of the image or whatever you're trying to focus on. Here we've got a lot of sky in the top of the image. There's a lot of just kind of edge foliage at the bottom of the image, so it kind of helps to draw the eye into the center there, to the more colorful flowers. And again, if I was going to crop this, in fact, let's go ahead and do that, because I talked about this before. If I was going to crop this for a particular output format, let's say Instagram story, then I would have to go to my crop and add the crop prior to the vignette, because the vignette will base itself off the edges of the image. And if we were to apply the vignette first and then crop, we would crop out some of the vignette, or that it would not be applied properly to the remaining image. So in this crop, I kind of like that. I kind of like that tree on the left. Can actually create multiple styles of image here based on the crop alone. But I do like the palm tree on the left. And then we can go and add the vignette. As you can see, based on the recrop there, it does apply to the new image edges. All right, so we will export that. I'll save it as a copy and check in to the daily edit Instagram story right after this broadcast, and that image will be up there. I want to thank you for tuning in today. In some episodes coming up this week, we're going to talk about the new camera setup, shooting with a new camera or streaming with a new camera, new lens, and going to be working on the set a little bit. So that's exciting stuff. All that's coming up in future episodes of The Daily Edit. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you next time.